So what is the new world of work? So there are a number of causes. And, the first cause of the new world of work that naturally comes to most people's minds is the pandemic, right? And that's, again, the most obvious one. The pandemic really blindsided us last March. Again, we seemingly, the fact that there was COVID-19 was kind of the incidents were increasing early on in the year. That might have been on some of our radars, but we haven't lived through a pandemic. We haven't lived through the impact that the pandemic has on the economy, on us as a society, socially, kind of how we interact with each other. Right. And in particular, we haven't experienced the fear and sense of uncertainty that the pandemic creates. And it certainly has impacted the workplace in a very radical and significant way. And again, that has been what has spawned in a very profound way, a new working world order that we're all going through right now, and that is still evolving. One of the things that the pandemic has sparked, though, that is on our radar, but really I just think we're at the tip of the iceberg with this issue, is the mental health crisis that we're in. Mental health is going to be an issue that is going to far surpass the official end of the pandemic. And we have seen in our practice how mental health, the fear that has been caused by the pandemic reality, the aggravation of existing mental health conditions, how it severely has impacted the workplace, and how organizations have to really upskill in terms of how to deal with the mental health implications from the pandemic. And we're going to touch on that today as we get, again, more granular in the segments to come. Another major impact on the workplace that has created our new world order has been social justice movements. Now, this isn't only the social justice movements that we have experienced in recent days. This goes back to 2016, when the Me Too, Time's Up, these social justice movements really hit a very significant high in terms of the impact on the workplace, caused legislative changes across jurisdictions, and really leveled up the requirements and obligations that organizations have to protect employees against incidents of harassment, workplace harassment generally, and sexual harassment. But now, we're 2 days past a very significant incident back in May 25th, 2020, with the murder of George Floyd, that really spiked, again, a social justice movement that has also impacted the expectations of employees within the workplace, and has also spawned escalations, with employees feeling emboldened to come forward and to call employers out on the inequities that they have endured, on the unfair treatment that they've experienced. And this has really been something that a lot of organizations have been ill prepared for. And again, is a very palpable reality in our new world of work. Again, Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate. Right now, these are hot and still hot, and will continue to be hot in the workplace context, and has really caused a focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. Work arrangements. I mean, from mid to kind of late March last year, we were just blindsided, as I said. I like to also say sucker punched by the pandemic, which caused many organizations across industries to, cause and require their employees to leave their workplaces. They were considered non-essential workplaces, and so you had employees leaving abruptly, cords flying through car windows, just boxes in arms, and this was something that wasn't planned for. Right? So organizations weren't ready for it. Employees weren't ready for it. customers and clients weren't ready for the fact that services have to be delivered, products have to be provided, and oftentimes produced differently. And so this is something that really has changed what we know to be work and the workplace as well. And then we've had new requirements from a legal perspective, public health requirements, standards have heightened when it comes to health and safety, and also new workplace requirements that employers are now implementing. For example, vaccination policies and vaccination requirements, which we're going to be talking about in the content as we move through. And fundamentally, what's caused a major shift is we've got new expectations that employers have. Employers have, determined that they can operate differently. I mean, as I speak to you, I'm thinking about the fact that I've got 7,000 square feet of office space right now occupied solely by tumbleweeds. And the last time I checked, tumbleweeds don't pay rent. So employers are thinking about how they can operate differently. They also have new expectations around productivity, new expectations around how teams will work together, some of which aren't very well communicated, and I'm going to get to that at the back end of our program today. But again, expectations on the employer's part, expectations on employees' part. Employees, some of them have experienced a lot more control in how they work. Yes, we're working oftentimes in certain organizations now remotely, which means that, we may be in distracted environments because as it stands now, children are at home, perhaps, learning online. You may have elderly parents at home that you're caregiving for. And so it's maybe a distracted environment, but there still is more control and flexibility with respect to how employees approach their day. So there are new expectations. There are new expectations with respect to how the employer will operate. And all of these things have caused us to enter into, again, a new world of work. So let's examine the effects. We've talked about the causes. Let's talk about the effects. There's one very obvious effect, and that is that we're in a different and a new world order. I mean, that is definitely speaking to the obvious, but what's not obvious about it is while we kind of notionally appreciate that how we're operating today isn't how we were operating at the beginning of 2020, we really have to more deeply appreciate what the differences are. We have to more deeply appreciate how expectations have shifted. We have to more deeply appreciate how we can operate or need to operate differently, what the legal requirements are, how standards have changed. And what we're finding and have seen on the ground is a lot of organizations haven't, we know things are different, but they really haven't captured the difference, again, so they can be planful, strategic, and really, come out of the pandemic on much stronger ground and much more stabilized and perhaps even better than going in. The other reality and another effect is the current new world order new world of work, put another way, is dynamic. We're still in shift, we're still in flux, we still have a lot of different evolutions in the law, as the law has not encountered and been really pressure tested in the ways that it has now. So, it's a very dynamic environment. It is also dynamic because we're also in the workplace dealing with different issues than we have before. Vaccinations, for example, and the fact that in and of itself can be a very polarizing issue. So, how do we navigate some of the realities of the new conditions in the new world of work? It's also challenging for some of the reasons I just mentioned, challenging because it's hard to keep up with new developments, right? It's hard to keep up with the fact that employees are in many ways testing the boundaries with respect to kind of how employers can operate, right? So employees may be a little bit more, again, demanding, pushing back, with respect to, hey, well, maybe we should do things this way, because one thing that's been very leveling when it comes to the pandemic is we've all been subjected to the same degree of uncertainty. So so a lot of employers haven't really, situated themselves back at the helm. Employees have detected this. And so, there's been some pressure testing in that respect as well. And that makes it very challenging. But also what makes it challenging is just, again, because there are so many different changes. We're on just totally new terrain, and navigating that terrain and navigating it effectively is something that employers are finding difficult. And you know what? I'm not going to doom and gloom us entirely, because there also is some excitement when it comes to the new world of work. There are opportunities that can be leveraged. A lot of employers are exploring and finding different streams of revenue, different ways that they can monetize, provide value within their industry, and that is exciting. But the other thing that's exciting for employees is now there are other opportunities. There might be, employment now is considered to be a little bit more, there's more mobility to it. So perhaps that opens up other areas of the job market that they wouldn't have explored before, given limitations of commuting. As well, it's exciting because, let's face it, a lot of us during the pandemic have been very reflective. We're navel gazing. We're questioning how we used to live. We're exploring how we can live better. And in that way, one thing that isn't great for employers, but is a reality, is we're on the cusp of a resignation boom. Mark my words, we're going to see resignations being tendered as employees explore other opportunities in environments where they might feel a better, more meaning, heightened sense of belonging, more control, more flexibility, the things that they crave, and they feel that they can actually actualize now because there are different opportunities. And that is a sense of excitement that employees are also, I think, awakening to in our new world of work. And finally, the new world of work is risky. And again, this is just bringing everything together that we've just talked about with respect to the effects. It's risky because there are, when it comes to the legal consequences and legal realities, maybe better put, it's risky because there are new risks, new exposures to liability, or different risks, different exposures to liability that we haven't encountered before. And because we're working differently, it's not, same old, because we're working differently, and because employees are recognizing new entitlements, and because employees and employers, I should say, aren't necessarily, meeting their obligations that they have, or meeting new standards, let's say, for example, as it relates to safety, there are a kind of a new realm of risks and exposures to liability, and different ways that these risks present. So that's really what we want to focus on today. We want to give you a sense, as we move through the how, the when, and the where, how to really navigate and to understand the different ways, and maybe the ways that exposures and risks have morphed in the new world of work.